So the Microsoft Community Docs have been around for almost a year. It's taken us a little while to sort of get the engine running. And the idea is to have a place where people in the community who may not have a platform for themselves can publish content that's useful for the general community, but also sort of fill in the gaps, because I think there's a lot of great content for developers. There's a lot of great help for end users, but that big space in the middle, and I seem to always be finding spaces in the middle that need filling. That area where we have makers, citizen developers, site owners, site collection administrators who want to be able to use this platform optimally and want to read about the best ways to do that. That's what we're really focusing on. So we have a set of topics that we've sort of grouped things into so far. Come on, there we go. And you know, some more walruses just to again liven it up. So we have things like basics and definitions, and I'll show you a few samples of what I'm talking about in each of these. Information architecture, a little bit about automation. Our audience here is not technical people. It's really that middle ground. So automation in the context of why is it good for you? How can you get things done? Maybe you talk to a developer about that. Some Microsoft 365 better practices. I stopped using the phrase best practices a long time ago because sometimes they're not best. They're just better than the alternative at a time. Making some better decisions. You know, if you have choice between 2 or 3 or 4 different ways of doing things, how should you evaluate those decisions, and how can you choose best based on the information that's available for you? Some SharePoint better practices and some useful scenarios. Let's play out a scenario that someone has actually solved in the real world and show you how they've done that in that particular article. Now we've had some great contributions over the the last 9 to 12 months. I wanted to call out all of the people who are sort of part of this first wave. Those community contributors there have each contributed at least an article or a significant change to an article that already exists. So if you'd like to see your name in that list on one of these calls, this is an opportunity for you to start to contribute to the community, maybe in a different way than you have before, maybe in a way that you hadn't thought of before. And then we have some, I wanted to come up with a good name for them, Microsoft Heroes. We'll call them the heroes. They all wear capes. Joanne Hendrickson is helping us sort of with the mechanics of managing the repo and making sure that things go live and things like that. Pam Green and Tom Reesing in the Docs group have been a great help sort of socializing this inside Microsoft and helping us get some traction, because we're actually publishing these articles in docs.microsoft.com. And so, you know, people are a little nervous about what we might write there, and so I think we can all continue to set examples of writing content that is of great value and also, you know, is correct and is, you know, vetted and all of that sort of stuff. Thomas Ray and David Strom sort of play a background role from the Microsoft side. They sort of keep that, even the underpinnings of the engine running. And Vesa does some stuff, and I talked to him about some things. So he's obviously a great help in all of this. So I know we just have a couple of minutes. I'll just show briefly what we have. So this is the landing page for Microsoft 365 community content, and each of these is an article or a collection of articles that ought to prove useful for you. One of the things that I think we've been missing in this community for a very long time is just a glossary of what are the terms. And every time I think of a term that I haven't seen spelled out in a while, I add it to this list. And I think, you know, any of you who might have some suggestions could probably come up with some things too. Just what is this thing that we're talking about? And lots of times there's an acronym involved, so it can be confusing, and a lot of the time people don't even know what the acronym means. Anyone know what CAML stands for? Camel? Well, I happen to. So it's anything from that simple a piece of content, you know, let's define a particular term, to some relatively complex things. You know, can machine learning be used to assign managed metadata attributes for items? Some really good thinking here from Beth Hall on you know, how to sort of think through that process. And of course that will change a bit with Project Cortex. So the onus is on us to keep the repo up to date. So we have these cards on the front that are sort of the promos of things that we think will probably catch most people's attention. And then as you drill into those categories down here, you have even more options. So sitting behind this is GitHub. And if you click that edit button, you actually get to the edit page for this particular document. But this Microsoft 365 community repo is where all the magic happens. And if you are an article writer and you're not a techie and you see GitHub and think, oh, no, I can't do this. I've tried to, and we've tried to, write some articles here and some content that really help you step through the process. How do I get started? How do I think about contributing to this repo? This also is content that you could contribute to. So all of this is open source. All of it is community driven. Love to have more people involved. If you just have an idea, you can go in and put in an issue. There are several different kinds of issues. If you spot something wrong with an article, or you have just an article suggestion. I don't want to write something, but I have an idea, something that I've tried to look for that I haven't found. Daryl Miller from Microsoft asked a question on Twitter earlier today, which I turned into an issue here so that we can try and write something about it. So that's sort of the process. It's a very quick overview. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you show up and make contributions or comments on things. And if you have any questions, obviously you can also just come in here and ask a question in the repo or tweet it out or whatever. And those of us who are paying attention to the sort of stream of content out there will try and help you out. And Vesa, back to you.
Before you stop sharing, just one note when we're still watching and seeing the screen. So yeah. Some of you in the call might be thinking on, wait a minute, so why is customers and partners creating this kind of content rather than Microsoft technical writers actually writing this kind of content? And when you think of it, the answer is actually quite simple. Customers and partners are the ones who actually spend 24/7 on actually in these tools and create these solutions and create solutions on top of the things what we in Microsoft provide. It's not that the PMs and the technical writers in Microsoft come up with the most creative things, or they come up with the ways of utilizing the platform. It's actually the people who deliver these solutions on a day-to-day basis to customers. Well, not on 24/7, but still, except in the Teresa's case. But it's really around the fact that then when the story comes from the community, from the partners and customers, it's a real world, based on real world experiences, not based on a person who sits in the office and has been told to write something related on X and Y and Z. That's why we want to do this. So it's actually real experiences around things. Anything you want to add there, actually, Mark?
No, but that's a great point. And I see this as, it's not competition with Microsoft's docs. It's collaboration. It's partnership. We're like I said, we're trying to sort of fill in some gaps. We want to give that different flavor that Vesa is talking about. We do this stuff out here in the real world every day, and people who work at Microsoft just see it from a different perspective. So it's adding a different perspective into the mix and filling in some gaps. And I think that this is just ripe for a lot of opportunity for people to make contributions, large or small. And I really hope anyone on the call can think of some ideas and maybe jump in and offer them up.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark, for that one. I'm just going to finalize and close up with a few final slides. Like Mark said, we know that, for example, for the community docs, it will take a while for people to get used to this model, but it is there now that we start feeding the engine and getting your contributions, and also enabling people who are not necessarily the developers to contribute back on a community in a one centralized location where people can easily find the awesome text and story what you actually written. You can actually publish the articles which are in your blog post also in this location. That's definitely fine as well.